Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday night breakdown, Monday edition, New Year's Day edition, no less. Daniel Routledge and Dave Forrester, the man who's harder to track down than an EasyJet flight to Bristol these days. You're all right, Dave. You've had a
Yeah,
wild couple of days. Are you all right?
yeah. To be absolutely fair, yeah, my partner here has been entirely available throughout, and it's been the pressures on my time in particular, and my inability to run it professionally, obviously,
Mm.
which has caused the hitherto delay to the soundings and um, basketball chit chat you're about to hear.
Yeah,
So,
His Majesty has something to do with it, though, doesn't he? And we can blame a little bit on the king, surely.
I'm blaming everybody, but the yeah, put it this way: the EasyJet and the criminal justice system are pretty comparable in the manner in which they process people, and that wasn't particularly helpful. We were going to do it this morning, unfortunately, but we couldn't. So sorry, guys.
We said last week we might look at London, Sheffield. It seems a lifetime ago, and it wasn't that thrilling either way. Shall we skip through it? Can you
Yeah,
remember
very,
anything?
very quickly, because I remember very, very little about it, other than the fact that Sheffield seemed to be as enthralled by a 1 o'clock tip off on Christmas Eve at the Copper Box as the rest of us.
Mm, mm,
Just it was just non. I thought it was a bit of a non-event, to be
yeah.
honest.
Did you see Paris 94, London 77 in the Euro Cup?
Yeah, London got rather stuffed by the fact that Paris are really, really good,
They are really
really,
good.
really big, and I don't know enough about the EuroLeague to know what a EuroLeague team looks like, but I'm pretty sure that's pretty close to one. Um, but also, obviously, they lost Decker um, to what looked like another ankle. And obviously, he's been rehabbing. He's not been the same this year, even when he's been playing
Mm,
to where he was last year. And that's all no doubt due to the kind of the on and off rehabbing of his ankle. And that did not look good. Subsequently came out, I think that Philip is injured indefinitely as well with his
yeah, yeah.
the recurrence of his knee. And you know, to beat Paris, I got the impression that London would have to play a bit of a perfect game. And
Well,
the,
I was doing a different game that day, and I was talking to one of my commentators beforehand, and I said I don't give them any chance in Paris because I did Paris last week, and I thought London had just sort of been bouncing along in recent weeks, and Paris were just looking really good, and I
but
just
you're
didn't see
right,
it.
and I mean there has to be some degree of you know continuation of that, as you say, bouncing along. It's a very kind of slow degradation.
Mm,
Not you don't go from being really good to really bad, but being worn down is a process.
yeah.
And unfortunately, you can be worn down and at Surrey or even at Caledonia, as they subsequently will talk about.
Mm.
But, being worn down in Boxing Day in Paris is, uh, it's not really a fair fight on them. And I don't know what Paris's schedule is, but I'm pretty sure they haven't played 23 league games already.
No, I don't know. I haven't looked at it, but no, I don't think they have anywhere near that. No.
So it's just I think it'll be interesting to see what London do because that actually was probably a game that they needed as an organisation in relation to setting a marker as to what they need to be if they really are serious about winning the Euro Cup. Because with the injuries that they've got now, um, they're not a Euro Cup winning squad.
No,
I'm
no.
not sure if they ever were, but they were in the conversation. Um, and you have to imagine that given the amount of minutes some of these guys have played, that any particular injury could be around the corner.
Mm.
So will be interesting to see if once they've kind of sewed up the British Basketball League by about the 15th of February,
Well,
whether
the
they
interesting thing actually is it will be mid-March before they do that because their schedule
right.
slows down. Yeah, obviously we've all got the trophy in January, but they only play three games, I think, in February, three league games or something like that.
Then again, if Caledonia and Cheshire and everybody else loses 3 games, it's still
Yeah,
done.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Well,
uh,
yeah.
magic numbers of six. Um, but even so, it will be interesting to see if they restock because I mean, obviously they signed the Lithuanian guy who's gone
Mm,
from just to fill a gap, and decided they didn't want to keep him. justice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there was just no justice anymore. Sorry. And you know, they've got, I think they've even got another import spot available for the BBL, I think, British Basketball League, because Conor Morgan's Irish,
Irish, yeah.
means he counts as a Brit, slightly confusing and one may say screwed up system. Irish can count.
I think there's hundreds of years of reasons for that we probably ought not
Okay,
go into.
okay. I don't put. Yeah, fair enough. He may be Northern Irish. Okay, but he's
Well, even the Irish, we have a common something or other. I can't remember
yeah, a
what it
common
is.
travel area. There's
Yeah,
a common travel
and I
area,
think
but
that also allows them to work out. I can't remember the exact detail of it.
yeah, that's probably right. Well, it doesn't insist that the BBL must use it as a.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Just on my little, that's my little hobby horse, which is import quotas are kind of ridiculous insofar as the way that they are at the moment. Basically, import quotas should be those eligible to play for Great Britain and those not, because that's how you
Yeah,
develop a league.
yeah, 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 yeah.
You develop British players, or you're not developing British players, but there's no point giving minutes like last year, for instance, me at Oni, British passport, fine. He has a right to play, right to work, all that stuff, but he's played for Nigeria.
Yeah.
He can't play for GB. So what are we doing giving him a spot as a GB player? It made no sense to me. But that's probably a long way down the list of everybody's concerns at the moment. So no, I just want to see what they're going to do. I mean, see where their organisation is kind of aligned to, because they're going to have to spend a little bit more. And the problem that they have is to get better, they're going to have to sign some good players.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And there are
exactly.
not going to be many of them around, other than perhaps people coming out of the G League, and they have a kind of um, a period where they've got to adjust, etc.
To be fair,
And
this is the time of year where there is churn. There's lots of other
yeah,
teams adding players from various parts of the.
well, I mean, it might be that they do that. They're a little bit short on the wing. I mean, in this game, when Decker went down, and they haven't got Soloade, the only guy they hadn't to put in from the wing is Queeley, and Queeley's probably not a big minutes player in the Euro Cup winning team at this point in his career. Because they're good at the Morgan, Sharma, Olaseni, yeah, great. And Grantham, fine, you can live with that. And then the four guards that they had, Morgan, Philip, Jordan Taylor, and Luke Nelson, yeah, fine, you can live with that as well. But it's that three position where there was a lot on Decker and Grantham. Decker's not there, Soloade's not there to make him a three guard kind of 6'5" guy, and then they really are short. That's where Oni came in last year. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, they might sit on it. Is there any eligibility rules about when you got to sign people for Euro Cup?
I don't believe there is. No, I think it just works to. No, I don't. I'd have to check it. I don't believe there is. I would imagine that by the playoffs you probably can, but certainly
Yeah.
during the regular season, I can't think
Yeah.
of any. Let's move to the British Basketball League action starting on Tuesday, which was Boxing Day, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Caledonia Gladiators 101, Manchester Giants 68. This was a contest for about 5 minutes. Giants led 11-12 and then an 11-3 run, 22-15, and then there was an 18-5 spell in the third quarter, 52-31, and
Wow,
just
in
kept
my
going
world,
north.
this game was about 2.5 weeks ago.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
You're telling me that was after Christmas?
yeah.
Wow. Um, well, yeah, it wasn't a game, was it? I
No,
mean,
it
it,
wasn't.
it, it was all the things that I'd kind of been hinting out in the week, kind of been hinting and saying about Manchester, kind of all came to
Mm,
fruition at the same time.
mm,
The Their energy wasn't right. Caledonia kind of picked them apart offensively, and they basically stopped moving the ball at all. The ball did
yeah,
not.
yeah, yeah,
Anytime somebody took if you did a shot quality chart between the two teams, it would be the difference between them would be far greater than any other game this season.
mm.
Caledonia were getting good shots, and Manchester were getting whoever had the ball was shooting the ball.
Shots, yeah, yeah.
It just did not look right at all, and they didn't have it at that point within them as a group to kind of bring it back.
No.
It looked like the end of kind of a slow decline.
Mm,
And you got to that point whereby suddenly someone pulls a pin out of the balloon, and after the balloon's been just dropping for a little bit, the pin comes out and boom, you're flat. And you're flying all over the room. So with Caledonia, I mean, scheduling, I mean, Boxing Day, I'm telling you, nobody's practicing on Christmas Day, or maybe if they are, I'm sorry. Albeit, I did get a message from a certain former Newcastle Eagles captain, who still lives in the kind of the Yorkshire area, to tell me that Sheffield Chris Finch was delighted to make them practice on 10 o'clock on like
mm.
Christmas Day and 10 o'clock on New Year's Day.
Well, I have to say, 25 years ago, maybe a
Yeah.
bit more than that,
Yeah.
but 96, 7 or something, I was drafted in as an extra body on Christmas Day to practice for a Boxing Day game.
Outstanding.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that is that
And
is
it
that
was like 9 in the morning or something, get it out of
now
the way.
is that officially the height of your career, or did
No,
it reach?
no, I had one appearance. I
What
had
on the
British
if
Basketball League appearance, yeah.
I
Did not
cannot
play
believe
coach's decision.
I cannot believe that we've been doing this for nearly 4 years, right?
Mm,
And you've produced every stat in the book
mm,
and then some. And we did not know that we had a coach's DMP,
mm.
unknown D Routledge on the stat sheet. Did you
Yeah,
win?
yeah. Yes, it was away at Manchester, and Manchester weren't very good. And I
You
thought I might get
Good
on
enough to
because
get your minutes.
Manchester are not very good. But unfortunately, it was a lot closer than I had anticipated beforehand, which is why I didn't go on. I looked good in the layup line, though.
Yeah, no, I mean the difficulty is that you have to find buildings to be open on
Mm.
Christmas Day. Now, obviously, something
Police headquarters we trained in.
you trained at the police.
Police headquarters in Enderby. Yeah, they have a gym.
Oh
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
that's yeah. So if you're in and around Leicester,
yeah,
you
yeah,
really commit a
yeah.
crime. Christmas Day is a good one.
Mm,
No, that's yeah. Well, you've done well. I mean, you've done well to do that. But no, it was Bridgie. Bridgie said, Finch was delighted to have them all practice it.
yeah, yeah.
Morning on New Year's Day, and as I said to him, well, that's why he's currently got the best record in the NBA.
Yeah,
Kind
yeah, yeah,
I got a
yeah,
few
yeah.
I got a few funny emojis back and a few words that we not use
Mm.
on this. But
Coming
it's
back to this game, do you remember the little melee in the fourth quarter?
oh
Lawton
yes,
and
yeah.
Jimenez getting wrapped up and it
Oh
all
yes,
kicked off.
it was really
Uh,
quite entertaining, wasn't it? Because
yeah, I thought
uh,
punches were going to be thrown, to be
yeah,
honest with you, the way they were going.
it was kind of him and trying to box out Lawton, and Lawton getting a bit frustrated that his team was down by 40 and he hadn't been playing much. And so it kind of carried on onto the baseline. And, Jimenez was kind of burrowing in like a scrum off at the bottom of a rug, trying to get the basketball or trying to get the rugby ball, but there
Mm,
was no ball there. The play had finished. And then the kind of thing that provoked everybody's ire was that Lawton kind of flicked Jimenez off like a like a flicky thing. I don't know. I'm fed
mm,
up. Some of these I've used enough. I'm done with them. He just kind of flicked them off and kind of discarded him to the deck. And unfortunately, the problem was that was right in front of the Caledonia bench.
mm,
And because it was right in front of the Caledonia bench, it probably actually garnered a little bit more emotional reaction than it would have if it
mm.
had been on the other side of the court. Because
Yeah,
when
yeah,
you look back at,
yeah.
when you look back at it, I mean, it wasn't handbags, but I actually thought, to be fair, the refs they got it. I initially thought they got it totally wrong. Then I looked up the laws and I realized they got it right.
Yeah, yeah.
So you can't do much better than that, can you? But yeah, police had jumped over the bench, over
Mm,
the hoarding, and yeah, it seemed Ian and JP were taking control of it and basically gave him a technical for jumping over the hoarding. That's a
mm.
one-shot technical, and he's got to go.
Yeah,
And I didn't know
yeah,
that was the rule. So
yeah.
that's cool. And then Lawton quite probably got on sportsman like for his flinging of Jimenez to the deck.
Mm.
But what surprised me though, what interested me was it's just the dynamic of Manchester. Lawton didn't come out of the game after that.
No, it was weird. I
Yeah,
thought you would
Lawton was
instantly
kept in the
take him
game.
out.
I'm like, okay, now is this normally you would calm your guy down. I suppose when you're down 35 or 40, it doesn't really matter as much.
Mm,
Um, but there's a question: does that mean you've got your guys back, or is that because you don't want to discipline him, or you don't want to create a further problem? You want to let him play through it. It's an interesting kind of dynamic that. And without being in the locker room, you can never ever know.
no, no, no.
But yeah, I mean, Manchester were kind of defeated from the first 5 minutes,
Mm,
and I think to be fair, they needed it
Mm.
because they say the slow decline, you prefer to hop and hit the bottom quickly, then you can
Yeah, yeah.
you
Bounce
realize
back.
this is a
Yeah.
problem, and then you can come back. Than to kind of keep losing games by 7 or 8 points and thinking, oh, we're good, we're going to turn the corner. That generally doesn't work. You know, if you need to address the issues, and the best way of addressing issues is when you get embarrassed.
Yeah. Police are 19 points in under 19 minutes. Whelan 17 points from 7 shots. Moore 8 for 10 shooting, 17 points. Anderson 12, Harris 10, Stampley 10, Lewis 10. They were 4 of 23 from 3 and had 17
And
turnovers.
now we've got another 3 weeks on Gladiators suspension watch.
Indeed, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
know, man. Who knows? Who knows? You know, where will the wheel of fortune land this time? You know,
Mm.
I don't know what the rules are. I would
I would
hope,
hope it was the
I would hope,
lesser of an incident.
I would hope that isn't a I would hope that you
Yeah,
wouldn't lose the game for it.
yeah, yeah.
Because on the argument that being thrown out the game is enough, because um he got as far he got on the court. But I think Darryl Wood was on the court, bringing him
Mm.
back very very quickly.
Yeah, yeah,
But I mean, if you talk to the NBA, Amari Stoudemire and Steve Nash, the Suns never
yeah.
got to the finals
No, yeah,
because
yeah,
Amari Stoudemire went 2 feet towards the table when
yeah.
Steve Nash got hip bumped into the by Bruce Bowen. So
Mm.
and he lost I think a game for that or 2 games. And again, it would be lovely to see what is the hierarchy of all of this and how
Yeah.
do they deal with this
Well,
stuff.
there used to be a thing, and there was a time where it was an automatic 10 points for any disqualification, so therefore you're
Yeah.
automatic. And there was a time where it was 9 points was the automatic, and then more on or after, but I don't know what it is anymore.
Yeah, well,
Let's go to Thursday. Newcastle Eagles 95, Plymouth City Patriots 82. Did you not get what you wanted for Christmas? You get nothing for Christmas, Dave, because you were on Twitter like El Grincho there about this game. I was expecting the worst game of the season, and then I watched it. I was like, "What's Dave moaning about? This wasn't too bad." Third quarter is a bit of a
I thought
slog,
it was
but the rest of it
a
was all right.
slog. I mean, nobody I spoke to disagreed with me. That might be because of the power of my personality, or there may be
Mm.
fear involved. I don't but I got retweets from the Uda and everybody, and just it was just a weirdly unsatisfying evening. Uh, and I say that as an absolute enthusiast. It
Mm.
didn't sound like it, I know that, but an absolute enthusiast for it. It would make the best thing out of anything. The first 5 minutes, Newcastle played with vigor, energy, and at that point, if there's such a thing as a reverse switch, Newcastle flipped it. Plymouth are good enough to hang around, no question. They're not, and they're well coached enough, and they're not gonna disappear and lose by 40 or whatever. And Newcastle weren't good enough to stop them hanging around, and the game just dragged. And it was a 2 hours 8 minutes game.
So Eagles got the first 7 points of the game, and it kind of stood there. Patriots had an 8-0 run in the just before halftime to take the lead, but then it was back to 7 at halftime. The only bit that I thought was hard to watch was the third quarter because there was a lot of fouls committed in that
Well, yeah,
quarter.
and then the last 5 minutes where there was a parade of timeouts,
Mm.
the 13-point game. I mean, that was.
Now you see, I'm watching on Synergy, so I don't
Yeah,
even see where the
I'm,
timeouts
I'm
are.
saying
Yeah,
a lot of my, to be honest, a lot of the gratuitous whinging was about the flow of the game. That
yeah,
was kind of not the action of the game. The game itself, yeah,
yeah.
the teams played. There was some good basketball played. The teams made some shots, missed some shots. I thought Newcastle were pretty sloppy. I thought Plymouth had their own issues. Faulkner in particular committed some dumb fouls, and he looked like the opposite of a guy who was kind of on board with coming off the bench, to be honest,
Mm,
because he came in and Johnson went past him and he basically committed a foul, the foul where he wasn't trying to play defense. Then another one under the basket, and then a third one where he reached in on an offensive rebound from Green, and he just didn't. And he had 18 points in 18 minutes.
mm,
He played all right when he was on the court, but in relation to the kind of the level of this, he didn't look like a guy who was content to be second guy off the bench for that Plymouth team, to be honest.
mm, mm.
So I'm not quite sure how long he's going to stay bought into that role, particularly if they're not winning and and things aren't going right. Um, for Newcastle, Green had no matchup because obviously Wiley was injured, and so Green dominated
Mm.
with his energy and his athleticism. Levi picked up a couple of fouls early, which meant that he wasn't back in until the third quarter. And yeah, there wasn't after about 5 minutes of the first quarter. Again, you wouldn't have seen this on Synergy. After one of the first timeouts, maybe after PJ's first timeout, Newcastle are up 12, and McGill and Johnson come out and they're having a laugh, they're having a chat. They're really comfortable. Discussing, talking about something, but they're clearly so comfortable that they're going to win the game. Certainly McGill, the way it seemed. I was thinking to myself, here we go.
Mm.
Energy. We're keeping it. We're saving our energy. We're keeping it that we're just going to play at the level we need to do to play. And I still don't think they're good enough for that at this point in time. I think they're 9-2. Newcastle's 9-2 the last 11 games, but they haven't shown that kind of killer instinct, that ability to flick the switch. And I think everybody was getting a bit frustrated in the gym. And as I say, then the procession of foul shots in the third quarter, and surrounded by timeouts and shot clock malfunctions and everything, it just dragged. Sorry,
Mm.
guys. It just and I've got beginning to get irritated by everything around everything that was going on.
Mm.
When
Mm.
the dance cam doesn't focus on you for long enough to get a move in.
Oh,
You
were
know,
you on dance cam, Dave?
I may have been just in the corner, but or just or when the start playing's over with 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and it's a 10-point game.
Mm.
It's just peeing me off. I'm
Mm.
sorry. Yeah, so very Grinch like, yeah,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
But it was not just me. There was an overwhelming feeling of just meh.
Well,
meh.
whoever was sat nearest the camera,
Yeah.
because there's obviously no commentary, you could hear a similar sort of feel to
Oh,
you,
that
Dave.
might be. I think I've got an idea who that might have
Some of
been.
the comments that were made were quite amusing. Johnson and Green threes early in the fourth quarter. It was 87-70, and that was basically it. Taj Green, as you said, 31 points, 9 rebounds. Johnson, 21 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. Austin, 12 points and 9 rebounds. Atwood led Plymouth with 27 points and 10 rebounds. Faulkner, 18 points. And their Green had 12 points and 9
And the
rebounds.
whole game was actually summed up by the fact that Newcastle seemed to think it was a fantastic thing to get Green to 30 points.
Mm,
And they were throwing alley-oops from at the end. He was failing to dunk them and kind of laying them in because he's getting his timing wrong. It was just the whole night time, everything was
mm,
just off.
mm.
So I thought the product was not good, to be honest.
Let's go to Leicester, where it finished Leicester Riders 81, Bristol Flyers 87. Johnson was back for Bristol after his injury layoff. Allen into the starters for Leicester. Flyers the first 6 points of the game. Allen the next 5. It was pretty even first quarter.
Yeah, I mean, Alan Starton's a really kind of key point, isn't it? Because that was always going to be a decision that we're going to have to
Mm,
make. And so seems like Rob's rather lanced the boil and said, look, I'm not going to let this hang around. He's my starter, so he's
mm,
going to start. Um, I didn't think it went overly smoothly in the first quarter for them. I think he shot the ball probably more than he shot the ball like a guy who was coming off the bench.
mm,
He had about 9 shots in the first 8 minutes. And the problem is because Teddy Allen, I've watched all the rest of the guys all season, right? So I know we know what they are, we know what the
mm,
rhythm is of the team. Teddy Allen's new, so anything new that immediately kind of piques your interest as to what's going on, how's it going to fit,
mm,
how they're going to play together, etc. So and then he's coming off the bench, now he's starting, so that's new. And uh, I thought he forced it a little bit early. I didn't think it was particularly smooth. And I thought they actually got a little bit better when the bench guys came in because they moved the ball a little bit more. Because Leicester's offense has always been very precise and it's struggling at the moment to be that way because of the influx of new players and the constant movement of personnel. So the stuff that they were running early in the season, where Rob's had like a month to work on them pre-season and put all the stuff in, and you've got them scoring 37 points in a quarter at Bristol
mm,
and getting every good shot going and looking like $1 million. That's out the window now because you've got 3 or 4 new players coming in. You've
mm,
got other guys who aren't playing, and everything's done. So they're being um a little bit less precise in what they're running, and a little bit more British basketball league like almost.
mm,
Against that, the defense is better because they've got guys who are more locked into to playing defense and not the showy stuff or the high flying stuff. But I didn't think Alan kind of worked in relation to Bristol. Well, Kenny Johnson, we'd all forgotten about him, hadn't we?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's the reality of it. Been gone for so long, we hadn't quite seen enough of him before he got hurt. But this guy averaged 13 a game at West Virginia, so he's a real player, and he was mega impressive in this game.
Mm.
Um, Albeit ultimately the game came down to just about my favorite thing, which is always the trade-off between threes and twos.
Yeah. So you mentioned Ryder's bench. They actually had a 14-2 run with Russell and Washington Adowu hitting threes, Leicester in the second quarter to lead 33 31-23. A Flyers 6-0 response. And then third quarter, Jacob One scored 3 threes. He had 16 points in the third quarter as Bristol went 5 points clear.
Yeah, it was kind of weird, wasn't it? Because he didn't really come back in the
He didn't
fourth.
come back in. Yeah, it was
You
weird.
know, he went and he's an incredibly entertaining player to watch, Trajan Jacob,
Mm,
because he makes shots which you think, ooh, and he makes plays, whereby he's going from half court to the basket and transitioning two dribbles, and he's not
mm,
going to miss. Um, and he did help turn the kind of the flow of this game because ultimately Brad Green couldn't rebound everything.
mm.
You know,
Well,
he did.
it was at that point, and nobody else could score. So it was
Yeah,
at that point that Leicester could have got away from them, and in fact, it was Bristol who got on top because of his 16
yeah.
points.
Well, they did have to make some shots. At some point, you've got to make some shots. And
Mm,
with the lineup the way it was going to be him
mm,
and subsequently Johnson,
mm,
because they've now got this whole kind of so many guards thing going on. With they've got 3-point guards now. They got
mm,
Lucas Jackson and who was a part-time signing, I think,
mm,
and also Samuels with Ollison, who's done a bit of ball handling, to come back as well, and
mm,
Johnson and Jacob. So, they're now suddenly gone from being bare bones to virtually, if Ollison's not that bad, to being overloaded. And
mm.
Andreas is going to have some decisions to make as to how many of those guys he can
Well, as
carry.
you say, the original signing for Johnson was, I think it was a 2 month contract, wasn't
Yeah.
it? Something like
But
that.
Jackson's done pretty well. He's been,
Jackson, sorry, not Johnson.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, from when Johnson went hurt. Jackson's done pretty well. This wasn't, and I'm quite sure that, having all of them would benefit them from a depth perspective. But the problem is that if they're not all playing as much as they want to be playing, you get diminishing returns from for each of them.
Mm,
So you're better having, fewer playing more and playing better than having guys fighting to get into their rhythm and fighting to get into space. So, but then you've got European games to think about as well. So, and then you have the whole question: well, do we really need 3-point guards? Would we not be better if we're going to get into the American? Having maybe a backup for a 3 or a 4, for Raul Graham Bell or Ralph Thomas Edwards. So I don't know. They've got some decisions to make as well. But what they are pretty satisfied with, I think, is the fact that they can bull teams into submission, and they've got a
mm.
guy who's stayed the course of the season pretty well in Brad Green.
Yeah. Holmes had Leicester back in front. Green and Johnson 9-0 run in the fourth, 71 78. That was pretty much it. There was a stage with a minute to go where Lowell was going to get to the rim and lay it up, but was wiped off for not being on court. I have watched it back because two people who were there
Yeah,
told me it was out of bounds, and I looked it back. You can't see it on the screen,
you
so
can't
it's hard
see.
to know.
I mean, the only thing you can see on the screen is that after he throws the ball in, he takes a step to the left, almost a
Mm,
sideways step.
mm,
So all I was thinking was that maybe on that step after he'd thrown it in, one of his heels was still on the line.
mm.
And at that point, then he comes in and catches the ball before he establishes his kind of third step. That
Yeah,
makes sense. But
yeah,
I
yeah.
rewound it as well, and I couldn't see. It can be, it can be a little bit of an optical illusion
Mm,
with players whereby you think, what's wrong with that? They're in. But then you actually look it back and think, actually, no, you've got the ball before your feet have touched the ground. And the rule is obviously you have to establish your
inside in the court.
both
Yeah,
feet
yeah,
inside
yeah.
the court. So if one of those feet, it looks like he's caught the ball in the court, but he hasn't.
Mm,
He's got to go with the refs on that,
mm,
unfortunately, for
mm,
that. The biggest twist of this game, though, was this is where ultimately Leicester are going to have to look at going forward. It kind of highlighted the major deficiency, which is it's very difficult to have Idowu going up against Green for the whole fourth quarter.
Mm.
It's great if Ado was making threes, or if you know if you're swapping threes for twos, and he made a couple, or he shot a couple, he made one. But if every time a shot goes up, Brad Green's getting the rebound and laying it in, and the one thing about Brad Green that's really impressive is not that he gets rebounds, it's that he finishes so well off the rebounds.
Mm.
Then they're going to have to look at saying, well, you know, can we extend Mo Walker's minutes? Because he's kind of at this 15, 16-minute mark, but he's the only big they've got. And I know that's, you know, for a team that's always ran with, that started the season with two bigs and Idowu, and now only has one. Are they going to look to add another one? Particularly a big body, because, you know, that's for that might be Green, but depending on what their ambitions are, obviously that's also Olasheni. With London and Coke at Sheffield, probably to a lesser degree, you know, and you they've always been a very solid rebounding group. Rob's always had decent size there. He's always liked to have a true centre in there. And if Walker's only going to be playing 16 or 17 minutes a game, and 5 or 6 of them are going to be the first 5 or 6 minutes, you know, so you're only getting, you know, 10 of the next 34, then you do run the risk of being outsized down the stretch, because the other guys are you know, they're solid. They're wings basically. Thomas is a 4, but he plays the 4, but he's basically got, you know, he's got a wings body. He's Dante Grantham, a little bit less than Dante Grantham, and Dante Grantham's playing the 3 for London. And Holmes and obviously Allen are big guards, but they're still big guards, you know. And so what do they do? Are they going to go all in for the trophy? Are they going to try and find somebody else? They've got an import spot or two if they want them, or are they just going to kind of suck it up and see where they get to and preserve their powder, their financial powder for next year? You know, that's the decision that these teams are in at the moment.
Allen's 17, Mackenzie Holmes and Adowu all with 11. Green, 19 points, 17 rebounds, 14 of them offensive, which is a club record, and 5 assists. Jacob, 18 points off 7 shots. Johnson, 18 points off 15 shots. They're not quite, they both hit 6.
He made a couple of really tough shots.
He did. He was fourth quarter. He was really.
He made a left-handed. I don't know if he is a particularly efficient scorer, but he's a guy who can get his shot when he needs to. And they've lost a few games in this season, in this run, whereby they haven't been able to score the ball when it mattered. And it might be he's the guy who ends up with it in his hands.
That, yeah. 18 offensive rebounds, 16 second chance points. Let's go to Friday. Cheshire Phoenix, 88. Manchester Giants, 92. No Anderson for Manchester. Bortier was starting. That's his first start since early November. Stampley also starting, only his 4th start of the season. Bortier actually had 8 points early on. I had this on the dual screen. And I've only watched back the last few minutes, but I remember in real time thinking, wow, Cheshire have fallen in love with the 3-point shot here. They made 3 of them early on, and then it was just every shot was a
and then it's just
three-point
every single shot. Yeah. Their ball movement's degrading as well over the past few weeks. They're not the ball, you know, there's a lot more. I mean, to be fair, they didn't move it a lot anyway. They were just very good at getting the ball to where it needed to go to get the shots that they wanted to get. But you know, there's some frisson there, I think, with that group, because some of them are playing, some of them aren't playing. And again, kind of, you know, they gave up 100 to they gave up 113 at home to Newcastle. That really should have been a kind of a canary in the coal mine type of thing, you know. And then obviously this was a kind of a quote marks revenge game, because there was a bit of hoo-ha last time, and Coach Simone had some words at the end of the game, and you know, there was the 2 timeouts with 11 seconds to go, and then you've also got the kind of the regional stuff and the social media stuff. So, you know, it's kind of things that get stacked up in the past suddenly come back to kind of bite you in the future. On top of that, Manchester will have had a clear the air, players only, whatever it is, meeting after losing by 40 at Caledonia. Because that's the type of loss whereby, you know, people's jobs are on the line. If you keep losing like that, you know, that's kind of a gut check moment. You hit the bottom. So they're going to come out with a lot more energy and kind of a lot more togetherness, because it's put the losses pulled them all together. If that makes any
Mm,
sense.
mm. And I
But you don't
also,
want to be the team that gets it in the next game.
yeah.
And Manchester, the ball moved a little bit more with Borussia starting. I thought that helped them. Obviously, Borussia starting instead of Harris. Harris has primarily been a scorer. So having Borussia start, made it a little bit more, a little bit easier for them to get the ball moving, get different shots. Stampley was great in the whole
Mm,
game for
mm.
Anderson. He played all 40 minutes and he played like Anderson, and that's probably the best compliment I can give him. He rebounded, he defended, he defended right at times. He did all the things he was meant to do. And Manchester just had kind of a little bit more physicality, and I thought a little bit more togetherness in that particular game than Cheshire did.
And the other thing that we didn't mention was the score of the last meeting where they were well beaten at home, and obviously that
Yes.
will be in their mind. 10 of the first 11 field goals that Cheshire took were 3-point shots, by the way.
Wow.
Giants led 14-20. Not a lot in this really, sort of swung back and
Yeah.
forth all the way through. Mid the fourth quarter, Giants had a 10-3 run. Lee hit some shots, Walsh getting out into transition, and they opened up a 10-point lead, 74-84.
Yeah, the biggest exemplification of the change in Manchester was that I think in the last game we talked about, not the one this week, but the one last week, William, they had 3 shots, right? And
Yeah, 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 yeah.
this game he was what, 11 for 17? So he had
11
17,
for 18, yeah.
11 for 18. So he had 18 shots. Now William Lee is, I would not hesitate to say, is their best scorer. He's the
Mm,
most skilled scorer. He can get his shot, but he needs to get the ball in certain positions, and he needs to have the defense moving, and then he can pick his spots and he can score. And that just wasn't happening. And in this game, it did, and that was a really major difference for them, um, because he was a guy that Cheshire really struggled to cover. Um, Offensively for Cheshire, it was fits and starts. It was either even in the fourth quarter. I thought it was spurts. They were hoping they'd maybe get a hot streak by the end, and that's just not kind of the way that you're gonna win games like that. You're gonna have to get some stops at some point. And I didn't think they got close to doing that.
let's go through the end because they did get
Yeah.
it back. 2:20 to go. Robertson fouling out on a moving screen. They'd already lost Lawton at that point to fouls as well, so they were without a big man at that point. Uh, Cheshire then almost turned the ball over, but then Lewis was out of bounds, so
Yeah,
they got it back. And then they did turn the ball over, but Lee got wrapped up and it was a jump ball, so Cheshire got it back
that's a pretty harsh
again.
ball, that
It
mate.
was a pretty harsh jump ball, yeah.
I think like give him another half a second before you make that call, please.
It's Nick's ball on the possession arrow. 1:55 to go. Rye drives, foul by Walsh, makes 2 free throws, 84-86. Lee missed a three. Looked to me like it might have come off Stampley, but the referee who was on the baseline, I forget who it was, said that it came off White, so it was a Giants ball. 1:28 to go. Rye fouls Lee. One of 2 free throws, 84-87. Uh, Other end, Shogwell misses a three. Rye got the offensive rebound, but then travelled with it.
Yeah, they did well to kind of block him out. They did a good
Mm.
job at Ryan this game. I'm not sure if it's because he's a bit worn down, or physically with the load he's had, or whether it's just because they were really focused on it. But Stampley was there, and when he was around the basket, they got bodies around the basket really well to kind of take away his little pet moves.
Lewis then lost the ball, coming the other way. Cheshire, Shogwell seemed to have a layup, but
Yeah,
instead kicked it out, and they ended up with a Hudson corner three, which
one
he
three.
missed. I don't know why you
Yeah, he
don't take the
did.
two there.
Well, they're just preordained and predisposed to
Shoot
get into the
trees, yeah.
odds, aren't they? Yeah. It was interesting that Ben went with Hudson at the end because he only played 8 minutes in the game, but it kind of gives you an indication that that Holden and Kristen aren't really in the good books.
Mm,
If Hudson's coming in and playing the last 5 minutes of the game when he's hardly played,
mm.
and Holden's playing like 9 minutes and Kristen's playing 10 minutes. So as I say, they are seeking to kind of find the right combinations there. I think a little bit.
So 37 seconds to go. Quick foul. Lewis makes 2 free throws, 84-89. Timeout, advance the ball. Rye, nice move to the basket, gets a quick score, 86-89. Um, Manchester almost turned it over. Borsier lost the ball, but then was
Yeah,
able to steal it back. And because they were scrambling off a steal, they stopped playing defense and committed a foul. Whereas it looked
yeah.
like they had been playing defense to that point because they were going to take their chances on a stop. And Borsier then makes one free throw, and it's a two-possession game,
Yeah, they're still not a team you
86-90.
particularly trust in crunch time, are they,
No,
Manchester?
no, no.
They have some crunch time demons to exercise, I
Mm,
think.
mm. Uh, Rideau just went straight to the basket. I thought it was too easy. This score, 18 and a
Yeah,
half seconds to go. They didn't. They
maybe
didn't.
for him because he's not, he's not a tremendous shooter. You don't want to give
Mm,
up a three, but you want to make him take a couple of seconds off the clock if you can.
yeah, yeah, and he didn't. He got there quickly. 88-90. 12 and a half seconds to go. Walsh is fouled. He knocks down the two free throws. It's 88-92, and then Walsh blocks Ryan the other end, and that's the game.
Yeah, Walsh is really kind of intriguing, isn't he? Because he's perfectly suited to this role of basically come off the bench and go as fast as you can, as hard as you can, and score as much as you can. Um, and seems to be kind of invested in that. Um, uh, and the whole Manchester team was invested in that game.
Mm. You could tell from
Don't
the
people
celebrations
not
at the end.
underestimate. Absolutely, and people can't. And this is why you can't look at all these games in a vacuum. You can't just take them one at a time. There are games that are circled on the calendar. There are things that are talked about in the locker room, and it was always an absolute mystery to me why these pro athletes wouldn't have every single game like that. It's the job is on the line. But then I think to myself, well, when I'm in court, do I do the very best bail application every single time? Am I totally locked into every single one every single time? And the truthful answer is probably not. I mean, you even the doyen here, you might have
Mm.
kind of wheedled your way through a few commentaries in the past.
It's
So
possible.
it's a yeah, so it's a um, so it's human nature, it's a human function. So when you have all that stuff that went on the last time, that's the easiest coaching speech in the world to do to give
Mm.
them next time you're playing them.
Mm.
In fact, it's almost one where you don't need to give one.
Mm.
It's one of those where you just look around the locker room and say, "You guys remember? You guys remember? Yeah, okay, let's do it."
Mm.
And that has so much more power than kind of 10 minutes of win one for the Gipper type rubbish.
Yeah, yeah.
So as I say, you store these things up at your peril. I think
Mm.
I think I think Cheshire's kind of a little bit of hubris kind of got them in the end in this one.
Rideau, 18 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. Chargois, 17.7 rebounds. Jack and Rye both had 14. Lee, 27 points and 7 rebounds, 11 or 18 shooting. Walsh, 20 points. Lewis, 14 points, 2 of 19 shooting. 6 rebounds and 12 assists. So a double-double.
Yeah, but that's 19 shots, 10 foul shots maybe.
Mm.
That's 24 possessions. Then another 8 assists or 12 assists.
Mm.
That's 36. He's used about half their possessions, either
Mm.
on shot or an assist.
Mm.
It's just a crazy number.
Mm.
Um, but that's the way they're playing, and the coach is happy with it,
Mm.
and they got the win. And to be fair, he played all 40 minutes, and I think,
Mm.
oh, maybe not in this game, but he played a lot of minutes, and they closed the game out.
Mm.
So if you told me that Nick Lewis shoots 219 and Manchester win at Cheshire, I'd have bought you a ticket on an EasyJet
Mm.
flight.
Let's go to East Kilbride. Caledonia Gladiators 79, London Lions 87. No Decker, Shalawadi, Philip, Grantham, Matt Morgan, Uday. So they just had 9 players, London.
Yeah.
Sandy starting. Ali Hodgic was back. Armwas Police are wheeling hitting threes. Gladiators out to 26-12. And I'm thinking this one is basically done. If the starters are down 14 points, London with their limited bench on the back of a Boxing Day game in Paris surely have no chance.
London's bench was better than Caledonia's bench, bottom line.
Was, yeah.
And it was a brutal loss for Caledonia, this.
Terrible loss.
Absolute brutal loss. Because you've got a Christmas game, you've got a full arena, and they've come from Paris to East Kilbride. They're coming with a threadbare group, basically. Colin Morgan looked the first 5 minutes like,
Mm,
he hadn't got off at whatever a mode of transport. I'm assuming a plane that they got up there.
mm,
And they were literally, it was the definition. If you Googled there for the taking, you would see
mm, yeah.
London Lions in that game. And it showed a couple of things for us. One, the importance of rhythm, because I thought, it's the first game this season that Ali Hodge has just come off the bench. And we've talked previously about how they play very differently with him to with Moore.
Mm,
So now you've got Ali Hodzic playing with the bench unit, and the bench unit in this game was something like 5 of 19 combined, or something like that. Maybe I might be doing them a little bit of a disservice, but not much better than that. And they're playing against London's reserves here. They're not playing against
mm,
the London Stars, or not all of them. But you're putting a kind of a focal point centre who's all about building up rhythm and kind of coordination with the other teammates, with Whelan and Onwas and Poliza. Suddenly he's coming in and playing with the second unit, where Moore had been playing with the second unit. And I thought it just bombed.
mm,
On top of that, he hasn't played for 3 or 4 weeks. So he's a little bit out of rhythm personally himself. And the time that they lost this game was the end of the beginning of the second quarter.
mm.
The game was there. And the unit that they had, for whatever reason, um, couldn't even maintain the lead.
No. So
Um,
Kaboza and Sharma helped them to 8 unanswered points around the first break. And then as the starters started to come back in, London went on a 14-0 run and took the lead 36-38.
Yeah, and basically they got a foothold in the game. I think
Mm,
it helped them when Jordan Taylor got possibly a slightly dubious second foul. 'Cause I think
mm,
Jordan Taylor's resolve hardened. I'll put it that way. I think Jordan Taylor was great in this game. Um, yeah, I'm not quite sure how much higher his basketball IQ is than everybody else in the league, but it's definitely higher.
mm,
And I don't think we've got a particularly high IQ league at the moment. If you take away people like Whelan and Mackenzie at Leicester and obviously most of the London guys, um, I don't see that type of kind of general who you're going to put the ball in the hands of, or who's going to make good decisions when it matters, And Taylor in this game did everything right.
mm,
He led his team. He was playing with the bench heavy units. And what was really noticeable was how frustrated, Gareth's timeout and Gareth's interview actually was saying, yeah, we can't let Taylor go left. We got to make some of the other guys shoot the ball, all of that. And you saw his frustration with his players at times when, the ball's being kicked out by Sharma from 18 feet to give Luke Nelson an open three.
mm,
When Sandy or Kaboza or even Ginogli's in the game. And I was so frustrated that these guys are the ones who are getting the open shots. But then it's a skill to guard someone without guarding someone.
mm.
And it's not an easy skill. So the reason it's not easy is because if you just don't guard them, then Kieran Sandy's just going to go to the front of the rim. He's going to make a layup.
Yeah, yeah. Mm,
And he's not, yeah, okay, Ilford second 11, all that stuff, right? But he's 6'6". He went to college in America.
mm,
Brad Kapoor, he's had 20-point games in this league.
mm,
You can't just ignore people. And so you have to get the balance right of helping off them. So the ball is funneled towards them. So they're the guys who are being asked to make the plays as opposed to these kind of Euro Cup veterans with totally ignoring them. And I didn't think Caledonia did a very good job of that at all. It's a real Charles Smith was the best. Well, Charles and Fab, but Charles was the best. We didn't want him. If there was somebody on the other team who couldn't shoot, or we didn't think could shoot, or we're happy to let shoot, Charles would be on him, but Charles would be just far enough off him to
to
take away
encourage
everybody
him.
else's
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
and just close enough to him, not to give him not to give him anything easy. So and that's towards the end of his career when he would accept he wasn't the most laterally quick individual.
Mm,
It's all up here. And I didn't I think that's what Gareth was trying to get his team to do. But you could see his frustrations with them as they were unable to do it. He looked like a kind of a coach who was frustrated with the ability of his team to follow the instructions or the way that he wanted the game to be played. So yeah, London it was great. I mean, it's fantastic for London. I
Yeah.
mean, for all this stuff about, oh well, they've got all this money in all the world and all that stuff. Bozic at the end of this game you could see that he was genuinely made up about winning this game. He was genuinely proud of winning this game with the guys who played. And it wasn't. I mean, as I say, Jordan Taylor played 28 minutes, and Luke Nelson played 30 minutes, and it wasn't like it was the games down in Plymouth where Matt Morgan's playing 15 minutes and stuff, and they're not really pushing it at all to get back in. They went out to win that game, and I'm quite sure they went out to win that game. Firstly, because Jordan Taylor wouldn't let them lose it, or
Mm.
wouldn't let them leave it, and secondly, because at the end of the day, they're looking at the league table and they're thinking, well, if we beat this team,
Yeah.
that's a 2-win swing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We got the cigars out in March.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that game had some focus. And I just thought Taylor just ran it. I
Mm.
just thought, and defensively, in the beginning of the third quarter, Moore came back in, but he wasn't as impactful. And Caledonia have this kind of thing where the wind's not blowing with them. It happened in the home game against Newcastle. It's happened in a couple of the away games as well, where they kind of damp squibbered a little bit.
Mm.
They don't look like they're gonna.
No.
They're either flowing or they're absolutely out of flow.
Mm.
In this game, for the second half, they were out of flow.
Well, Nelson and Morgan got lines out to 10, and that was basically that. They did technically get it to 4 in the last 30 seconds, but it never looked like they were going to get back
No, it
to
didn't. It didn't. I mean, I thought they might get and beat the spread, but betting they took a bit of a hit this week. 4.5 point spread.
Mm.
Anyway, come on. The other thing they've got an issue with, they've got to decide on is Bothwell, because Bothwell's now he's only played 3 or 4 games. But it's not so much the way he's played, but it's what he is. He is a combo who is best attacking the rim. And he's replaced Jovicic, who was a point guard,
Mm.
who was brought in to run a team.
Mm.
So they've gone from one type of player to another type of player. Now, at this point, the way that Gareth runs and spaces those teams, his guys need to be able to shoot. And at the moment, the jury out on Bothwell is whether he can shoot or not.
Mm.
Because all the games that we've watched, he's been side of the backboard, he's turned shots down, and I'm absolutely sure he can get to the rim. I think he's probably a good passer. As we said last week, he had 5 foul shots in college to 3-point attempts. So he's clearly a guy who's aiming at using his size to get to the front of the rim. But is that what that team needed? It's not what that team had. And would they not have been better with kind of a quicker, kind of more pass-first point guard type? And they're going to have to make a determination on that as well. Because that is a gutting loss for them.
Mm. It is.
Okay, whichever way you put it, that is a game. The way that they started, 26-14, with that team, they play another 5 minutes of good basketball.
It's over.
Well, there's every chance that that Petar Bozic isn't going to be pushing his starters the way that he did.
Mm.
I'm sorry, but if you get into a game with those guys with 5 minutes to go, you're not going to win.
Mm. Mm.
If you're in a tight game and it's Olasheni and Nelson and Jordan Taylor and Connor Morgan, in the British Basketball League, you might win 1 in 10. Because they will have 4 of the best 5 players on the court.
Mm.
And also they're together and they know how it's done and they're professional, so yeah, really, really, really tough loss.
Yeah. On West 19, Whelan 13.7 assists, 5 rebounds, Police at 13. Olasheni 18.8 rebounds, Nelson 15.6 rebounds, 5 assists, and Morgan 12 points, 11 rebounds. Let's go to Saturday. Leicester Riders 103, Sheffield Sharks 75. No Adekoya and no Eitel Rock still for
Yeah,
Sheffield.
they put an injury report out saying that he was not good by the sounds of it.
No.
Potentially long term. Yeah.
But first play of the game, Thomas dunks in an offensive rebound. Leicester scored every time down for the first 6 plays of the game. Sheffield couldn't score. Thomas was excellent. Next thing you know, Leicester are 21-2 ahead.
Yeah. So what's the mitigation for Sheffield then? Is one, they hadn't played over Christmas. Leicester had played. Leicester in slightly better rhythm. Leicester are kind of engaged, and you don't know what type of practice is going on in Sheffield when they're playing for the one game. But against that, Leicester played 2 games, so they may be a bit more fatigued, but they had 2 days gap. Still, they got jumped on early by a team that was ready to play, and Sheffield weren't ready to play early. That's pretty clear. Secondly, it was the second game for Alan in the starting lineup, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I just felt, and you just felt that there was a little bit more comfort about the other guys getting their looks earlier, and then he kind of came to the party, if that made any sense.
Hmm.
Which really helped them. And they had one of those kind of Sheffield had one of those days where the shots they weren't really getting great shots. Bennett was struggling to score more Walker because he's kind of equal size, so they couldn't just dump the ball down low and get started early that way. And Leicester were flying,
Mm.
and Leicester have some talent there, they just got to mix it together and make sure they rebound the hell out of the ball, to kind of stay even on the gas, and they've got a real shot at being good. But it's like everything. It's 60% Leicester, 40% Sheffield.
Mm.
When it's that much of a disparity. They got obviously we had this stuff going on with the Tiber in this game. All came from kind of a non-call, two calls in the first quarter.
Mm.
There was one where I think Leicester got a 3-point shot foul. And there was another one where Nixon rose up right in front of the Sheffield bench. I think it was Holmes, kind of undercut him as well. Same thing. And the ref didn't make a call. And at that point, it was like 15-2.
Mm.
And that got Atiba hot. That he thought his team wasn't getting that call, and that Leicester were getting similar calls at the other end. But of course, his team wasn't the aggressor. That's the problem. I mean, I think the call I got him was a 3-point shot foul, and he got a technical for that.
Mm.
And then
I did
there's a
wonder
game.
at one stage whether he was doing the old Bob Dunnerwold sort of go nuts and get ejected and fire your team up.
No, I think it was. I think if you look back, you'll see it's halfway through the first quarter, right in front of the Sheffield bench. There's a 3-point shot that Nixon puts up where Holmes comes under him, and Atiba's hot because there's a call being made already
Mm.
for Leicester at the other end. I think maybe Cook might have not got a call at one end as well, but they're being well beat. So he gets a technical for that, for whatever he said, and then the game kind of continues on, and Sheffield get into the rhythm of the game as you'd expect, but you can't give Leicester 20 points in their own gym.
No, they got it to single figures once after that, 28-19. The rest of the game was in double figures.
Yeah.
And it was and then it was another foul three in the third quarter. Allen was fouled, and Atiba got
Yes.
his second technical for sarcastic applause, I believe.
Sarcastic applause. I think we've all clarified it was sarcastic applause. We certainly wouldn't be speculating on anything else, would we? Well, to be fair, if you're sarcastically applauding the ref, you're getting a technical. That's there's no referee in the universe who's going to accept that. It sometimes does frustrate me that kind of visual dissent is pounced on so quickly, kind of a flick of the arm or a raise of the eyebrow or a style or a poor assistant coach who raises his backside from a chair. Happened to me once. That's a technical. But if you're standing there, making a show of showing up the refs, and you're going to get a technical, unfortunately. And two means you go. There was a nice little vignette between Mackenzie and Nixon when Nixon kind of did a little loading on Jimenez, and Mackenzie tried to get over a screen, and Nixon throws Mackenzie to the ground, and you see Mackenzie, I think saying there was that's what's that bullshit or something like that. That was his phrase, and then Nixon starts walking towards him and behaving in a threatening manner, and Sheffield were aghast that Mackenzie didn't get a technical and Nixon did. I can only imagine that it was something to do with the exact words that Nixon used towards Mackenzie as he went towards him. But overall, the
I
game was
thought for a second there, Dave, you were lobbying for a double
double text.
technical.
I hate double text, as you well know. I am an absolute. They are the fruit of the devil. Double text.
A
So
friend of mine did text me, Dave, and said, "Oh, no double tech, Dave will be happy."
well, yeah, I mean, well, here's the thing: if you've been thrown on the ground like he was, and there's a foul committed, and it's a general reaction of the player to say, "What are you doing?" Right? And it's kind of basketball reaction. I say basketball players kind of will use certain words in using that, but he said that whilst he's sitting on the ground. He's not said that whilst he's getting up to kind of go towards the guy.
Yeah.
That's the difference. So Nixon's then walked back towards Mackenzie, and no doubt said something that the refs heard. Now that's different because that's potentially aggravating a situation. So I do think there is a difference. Depending on precisely, it's a manner in which Mackenzie is operating that makes the difference. If he's sat on the floor like that, but if he's getting up and going at him, then he gets an automatic tech. That's the thing. So yeah, but by that point, the whole thing had kind of degenerated anyway, hadn't it? And you got the impression that Sheffield were just waiting to get out of the gym and get to the next game. In the meantime, Twitter's interesting. Keep having a look, guys.
Yeah. Allen 25, 6 rebounds. Thomas 22, 7 of 9 shooting, 10 rebounds. Holmes 17. Leicester were 14 of 27 from 3. Nixon.
Yeah, they have games like that in that gym.
Yeah, they do.
All threes. But Thomas is probably the key to their season at the moment, the way he's playing. If he plays well, they're in every game. If he doesn't play well, if he's just quiet, then they've got a bit of a gap. So, and obviously Alan is a shooter. I think we figured him out. Figured out now. He is a knockdown shooter, and you're gonna have to make him drive and finish at the rim, and he can finish at the rim undoubtedly. But if you let him step back and shoot threes all day, he's going to kill you because they're all really good.
Nixon 17, Glasgow 15, Nichols 11 and 6 rebounds. No Plymouth, Newcastle, obviously.
Yeah, this has been a tough one for me. This because coming at it from the perspective of somebody who's done all the organisation and understands the routines and rhythms of players and what players want and what is best for players in their own mind and in the coach's mind. I would have made the exact same decision that Newcastle made 100 times out of 100 and twice on Tuesdays. We've never ever had to play at Plymouth at 8 o'clock on a Saturday. It's always been 4 o'clock on a Sunday or after a game at Worcester or Bristol. And you would drive down to Worcester and you'd split the trip, or Bristol or even Surrey. But what is kind of not known, what's kind of not understood is the rhythms, kind of the circadian rhythms of basketball players. They do not want to be sat in the gym at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They do not want to be sat in a hotel bar at 1 o'clock waiting for the clock to tick around at 6 o'clock to go there, to go to the gym. They want to do all their preparation. They want to do all their rest. They want to travel to the game. They want to get in the gym. They want to shoot and they want to play. And you don't want to have that kind of dead time sitting around where you're not getting anything useful out of it because it's too close to the game, where you're not being able to manage your diet properly before the game. So I spent more hours than you can imagine worrying about the A1 route planner and all that stuff, about getting 2 games at exactly the right time. And that means what time you leave the services, etc. And of course, all this comes across like, you're just defending the Eagles.
Well, what I would say is the reality is that if they had driven, and if they had driven, they would have left at 8, 9 in the morning or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they would have stopped twice, presumably. Is it a 3-stop trip?
Yeah, 2 stops, but they've got to Bristol about 3:30.
They'd have got to Bristol about 3:30, which if they were flying from a 2 o'clock flight, presumably you would be through the airport and on a plane by on a bus, by 3:30. So those 2 things are exactly the same.
Logical. The problem with it is that there's no backup plan.
Yeah.
That's ultimately the thing. And so the question is the fact, and because
I guess you can't have a backup plan. It has to work.
That's right.
Because
it has to work.
you are too far away for plan B. It's not like, well, if the M1 is shut, we'll go across the
or if the bus breaks down, we'll get some taxis to pick us up, or that type of thing. So that's the criticism. That's the fairest criticism, which is to say, look, you put all your eggs in that one basket. But that was the only flight which didn't leave Newcastle Airport on Saturday. And if you go back on that flight every Saturday gone for the past year, that flight would have took off at the same time.
Yeah.
To me, and again, I understand this may sound like being a bit of an apologist. Crap happens,
Well,
it's brutal for the fans, and I get that. And there may be financial repercussions which the league have to sort. And on top of that, the rules, this is stuff that needs to be directed by rules ultimately. And it actually goes to a wider point, which is, look, If you want to have teams in venues earlier, well, the court's got to be available earlier.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for instance, the Eagles can't be running tournaments to get kids in on their court until 6 o'clock. Cheshire can't be waiting until 6:30. Plymouth can't have the cheerleaders on the court an hour and a half before the game doing practice and their warm-ups. And that's you've got to say, right, you can have the court the whole day. You can come in at 4 o'clock and shoot. We have to have more communication between the various teams in relation to facilities that they can find to practice if they're going to travel the day before. And there needs to be a league-wide protocol about that. So it's not just because the reality is Newcastle, that snooze festival game on Thursday night between Newcastle and Plymouth finished at 10 o'clock. Plymouth flew back on Friday morning. They'd flown up on Thursday the same way. So if their flight had been 7 hours at Bristol, we might be in a similar situation. They flew back on Friday. Newcastle have the choice of potentially flying back, I suppose, with Plymouth, and then having to do all their recuperation, rest, pre-game stuff, etc., stretching, all of that stuff in a foreign city, or not foreign city, but may as well be rural. But in a city they're not used to, without potentially the links to that place, or the players get to spend 2 nights in their own beds doing the same thing, the same time, and then they get to do the shortest possible trip to Plymouth that there is. So yeah, I'm afraid I'd have done it 100 times, and if the league doesn't like it, this is what's going to happen, and they need to set up a whole new protocol in relation to away teams and what away teams can legitimately be expected to receive at away venues. And people don't, and owners don't like that because it costs money. So Newcastle going on Friday, spending 2 nights in a hotel in Plymouth, flying back, that's probably going to be about £5,000. That's possibly 1% of the entire turnover of the club for one game. That's going to cost a lot of money. Now, if the situation is that that's mandated by the league and everybody's paying it, that's fine. And you faction into your budgets. If when, for instance, Leicester decide they want to come to Newcastle early on a Thursday to play on a Friday, then the league should have a ruling which says that Leicester are entitled to practice on the court.
Yeah.
That's it. And then it has to be done.
Yeah. Because there was obviously that incident when Leicester were coming from Italy to Newcastle, and they weren't allowed to train anyway.
No, that was a competitive situation.
Competitive situation, but you have to take that out. The reality is you have to take that out with a rule.
If you have to do it by rule, and then the reality is generally basketball karma wins and they beat us, to be honest. So if it was probably one of the there we go. But the whole thing is, from my perspective, it comes down a lot more to governance than it does to individual kind of decisions. And if teams are going to be permitted to fly to games on the day, then they have to be able to pick their own schedule. And if they're not going to be permitted to fly games on the day, then the league has to step in and say, well, this is what a club will be entitled to on the road, in relation to practice facilities, etc. When can they get into shoot around? Can they get into shoot around in the morning? That type of stuff. That's going to be, it's not really going to apply to the clubs in the centre, to be fair. So, but that would be unworkable for Cheshire because they haven't got their own gym.
Yeah.
And Manchester, I don't know what the basketball performance centre is like. Maybe the same for Surrey. It may be unworkable. So that's all stuff that, when we're talking about professionalism, which is a word I hate because everybody has a different meaning for professionalism. It's unprofessional not to get to a game, arguably. Then I would say it's unprofessional to put a player on a bus for 10 hours on the day of it. Right? So how do they both go out? No one knows what that means word. That word is just kind of a cop-out to, I don't really like what's happened, therefore we'll call something professional. Because there are always more things, more factors that go into it. So yeah, it's regrettable. It's really unfortunate for the fans. I'm not unsympathetic towards everybody's position. Really not. But I think as with most things, it goes a lot deeper than just kind of this canary in the coal mine.
Yeah.
It's a lot deeper than that. And there's a lot of stuff which we don't do, which we should do, if you really want to run things on a even keeled basis, whereby every club has its own right responsibilities. If you want to get, should there be pre-game food put on for if opposing teams are going to get there 3 or 4 o'clock? Should there be pre-game food put on? We could
mm,
slip some Mickey Fins in it, when Leicester come, something
mm,
like
mm.
that. But there's all sorts of things that you could talk about.
Yeah, and the reality is when you get into European competitions, there are rules that says this team will be allowed to practice at this time, and they will be allowed to shoot around at this time, and they will and you will give them this, this, and this, and that's
So basically, every time we've had one of
that's
these
flat
issues
rule.
this year, every time we've had one of these issues this year, or something like this, or something different, it's all come back to governance.
Mm.
It really all comes back to governance and rules and enforcing stuff and setting standards. Everything comes back to that.
Let's come back to the games that were played.
Well, again,
Sunday,
I
Sheffield
would have picked it. So go on.
Sheffield Sharks 86, Manchester Giants 75. Pipkins was out. Walsh was also out now. This was eight aside. And
Yeah.
my little brain went, when was the last time there was an eight aside game in the
Oh, I'm
British
so proud of you.
Basketball League?
Was it when
Um,
Kiko Routledge playing for Leicester?
no, well, that was why it wasn't outside. Um, but the one I could find was the 24th of January, 2016, Flyers against the Rocks. But I don't think that's right. I think there's a mistake on that. And then there's quite a few in late 13, 14. But on the BBL website, there was a thing where you were only getting players who played in the game pull
Right.
through, and on the live stats when you could still see live stats from 8, 9 years ago, there were guys who didn't play who were on the thing. So the best I could come up with it was a long time ago.
All right. Okay. Fair enough.
But it was half an hour well spent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Really not a lot in this one. Never more than a basket in the first quarter. Nixon and Rotino made some shots in the second to have Sheffield out to an 8-point lead, but Giants got it back to one at halftime.
Yeah, I kind of thought that the Walsh loss was the biggest one for Manchester in this game because Walsh has given them points around the quarter breaks,
Mm,
and and it's tough for them, I think, to get, especially against a team like Sheffield. They needed cheap points, and I don't think they got enough cheap points in this game. And Walsh is a guy who's been giving them cheap points in transition. And what cheap points are? Points that they really don't have to work for. That a guy just gets off talent, off quickness, off scoring in the first 7 seconds of the shot clock. On top of that, Sheffield had a lot going on after the night before, and there was a big crowd in there, so they really had to win this basketball game. And Pipkins, I think, had only played 10 minutes the night before, so he's clearly hurt.
Yeah, there
And
was there was a point at which he went out in the game when it didn't look anything obvious, but I was led to believe that he was injured and wasn't coming back.
yeah, so that's a bit of a loss, and obviously Adekoya is kind of a loss for them as well. Well, he is a loss for them as well, so they're a bit short as well. But it's kind of a tired situation. Everybody's playing a lot of games. There's
Mm,
Manchester playing all these games. Um, and Sheffield playing a back to back, 5 o'clock tip and then a 3 o'clock tip the next day over the Christmas period, and it's becoming kind of a battle of attrition.
mm.
And I thought this game was kind of that, kind of a war of attrition. Um, Robertson is an interesting dude. I mean, really, there's something. Obviously, the last game he played down in Sheffield, there was the headbutt incident, which I did actually
Yeah,
go
yeah,
back and watch,
yeah.
and I watched it because he was making a post move at the time. I wasn't entirely convinced that it was a deliberate headbutt, which means he wouldn't have been thrown out. I don't think I would have thrown him out.
Mm,
It would have been unsportsmanlike, but there was enough there to make you suspect.
mm.
That makes a sense. So I think the ref but he's an interesting guy
But that was
because
it was a second unsportsmanlike, so he would have
yeah, I
gone
know
either
that. So he
way.
was
Yeah,
gone anyway.
yeah.
Yeah, but the question was, should that have been a straight DQ? It was a
Mm.
headbutt ordinarily.
Oh, right, I see. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? I wasn't sure. But it definitely was. But he's a guy who seems to be playing on the edge of his emotions a lot.
Mm,
He kind of quite visibly emotional at times on the court. He's dunking the ball. He commits a foul. Uh, he's always a lot going on with him, and you can see he's really trying to force himself. And he had quite a positive impression in this game. He's kind of beaten out Lawton for minutes, really, which you
mm,
wouldn't have expected, I don't think, at the beginning of the season. But they didn't quite have enough shot creation in this game from what I could see. And Sheffield had probably the Ramsey and Nixon, but more than that, then Glasgow turned up and made some shots for them, and they were more efficient scorers in the backcourt.
Well, it was a Glasgow 4-point play followed by Nichols 3, Delpesh and 1 missed the free throw. Bench technical, I think, for Walsh coming on the court. A 10-2 run, 63-51, and there was, apart from a few Lee shots, no real response from Manchester after that.
Yeah. I think Manchester really kind of allayed a few. Obviously, they're playing without Jamal, and
Mm,
okay, they beat Cheshire without Jamal, but still, they're playing without Jamal.
mm,
All right, and Jamal has been the piece that's kind of hung them all together all season. And there's a big kind of a burden on that team. So kind of surviving without him in the two games that they've had, and they have survived without him is positive for them going forward. The reality is that the shot distribution is still a little bit out of whack for me. I think, William Lee needs to have the basketball a bit more. And I think the guards at times are putting up shots a little bit more than they need to. I don't think they're as patient offensively as they could be, but they're getting away with that if they're playing at high speed and if Evan Walsh is dropping 20 and getting to the rim.
mm,
Evan Walsh isn't dropping 20, then the kind of that, and Jamal's not there either, to throw the ball to in the post. That kind of struggle is kind of a struggle for them.
mm.
But you're certainly more optimistic for them than you were a week ago after Caledonia.
Yeah, yeah.
And Sheffield, very Sheffieldy, they come, but they always bounce back.
Mm,
There's games that they'll play every so often, and generally at Leicester, where they get hammered. But the next game, it's like a different team again. So there's always a reaction. The question with them is how long can they kind of sustain that reaction? And obviously, we're going into the trophy games now,
mm.
so uh, we'll see how teams approach that and how committed they are to that.
Nixon 20, Rotino 18, Glasgow 16, 50% field goal shooting, Sheffield. Lewis 19 points and 7 assists. Lee 7 of 12 for 17 points. Harris 11. They were 5 of 24 for 3. Here we go then, Dave. I've got a stat question for you. Nick
Oh,
Lewis 0 for 8 in consecutive games from 3-point range.
wow.
That isn't the stat question. The stat question is 8 of 27 from the floor. Nicholas Lewis was. Only
Right.
one other player, he scored 19 points. Only
Yeah.
one other player in the last 15 years has taken
Wow.
27 plus shots and not scored 20 points. Can you name said player?
Yorick.
No, Yorick is obviously
Yorick's
he's obviously a
generally
different.
answered every question.
Yeah,
Every kind of jagged up question is generally
yeah,
Yorick
yeah, yeah.
at the end of the season.
If you need a little clue, you might well have had a tie on, Dave,
I
at
might
this
well
game.
what?
You might well have had a tie on at this game, Dave.
Wow. A tie on. Final?
Possibly. I can't remember whether it's the rules that you had to have a suit and tie on.
There was the rules, but we kind of ignored them.
Oh, did you?
It is that I'm not the most elegant individual in the suit. The only one time I ever wore a suit in the final was the one that the COVID final at Glasgow.
Okay, so you
That was
didn't have a
that was
tie on then, Dave.
So I didn't have a tie. That was Ian's first final, and Ian preferred that we went in suits. I was fine. I was the assistant. But we always had the polos on.
Mm.
Okay, Joanne Smith,
No,
Glasgow Cup final.
no. It was a cup final.
Oh, oh man, I might need to get back to you on this. Who shot the ball that much in a cup final against us? Oh, we must have won. There's no way in the world we've lost that game if someone shot 27 shots. We lost. We
Yes.
lost the game where we got 27 shots and had less than 19 points. Milton Keynes game, maybe?
No.
No, I wasn't there for that. We lost the
It's a
final.
game that's rather more famous for about 4 minutes of Sullivan excellence.
Oh, that
Oh,
rubbish. Oh,
heck.
that
I'm
game. I
not sure.
know. I've never
January
watched that game. Right?
January
I know.
2013 against
Okay, well,
Leicester.
that game
Charles Smith
was it.
was what was he? 8 for 27
Oh,
for 17 points.
one of my players. I think I was thinking somebody else.
Mm,
Yeah, actually, that would be probably right because Charles and Drew were going at each other, and Drew kind of was guarding, and Drew I think got a block at the end of that game,
mm.
if I remember rightly.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
And get it, but I mean, yeah, it was 4 minutes of Drew Sullivan and 7 minutes of the refs. But never mind, I'm not bitter. No,
um,
bro, watch it. That's
it
Alaska.
also
Alaska got Glasgow calls for the world's first invisible push-off. That was
the
Keith. The world's first invisible push-off at half court.
We're not breaking
Literally.
down the 2013 Cup final now.
So
It also ties the record for most shots this season, 27. Any ideas who might have
wow.
shot 27
Yeah.
shots in this season?
Taylor Johnson, maybe?
No, no.
27 shots. So Nick Lewis would be my first choice, to be
There we
honest.
go. He
All
tied
right.
his own record.
Okay.
He was 14 of 27 for 33 points against London in November. Right. So after that little funny, I'm just pulling quizzes in now.
You've all put
I'm
quizzes
making
in.
this quiz master thing happen. Let
Also
us.
scratching very, very sore points as well. So keep doing it, yeah.
Yeah. It's not my fault that that happened to be
Wasn't
the
12,
game.
13, that was 13, 14, by the way.
So January 2013.
No, that was January 2014, sure.
Oh, maybe I've written it down wrong here, but
Might be no, well, it might be no, but it might be January 2013 because we played in the cup final then, but that was the game that Zaire went off and we made the shot at the end. That was the game where
Jorge Calvo, wasn't it?
Jorge Calvo
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Zaire
yeah,
made, no, Jorge Calvo was
was the Sullivan. Well, they're all blurring. It doesn't
oh,
matter.
yeah, no,
It doesn't matter.
yeah,
Let's come to today's game.
yeah.
Surrey Scorchers 80, London Lions 85. We were supposed to be doing this morning because I was going to the football, but His Majesty's court service got in the way. So I've only watched the last couple of minutes of this and one other little 1 minute spell, which I had to look up when I saw it. Hunt and Robinson back for Surrey. End of the first quarter, Surrey with Wang and Lawrence hitting threes, finished 10-0 to lead 29-18, Dave.
Yeah, and then London picked the defense up. Basically, sorry, the reports out on Surrey, they're shooting a ton of threes. You got to guard the 3 point line. They didn't guard the 3 point line well in the first quarter at all. And I think they had 29. And then I think they scored 5 points in the first 6 or 7 minutes of the second quarter.
Olaseni had 9 in a 13-2 run to tie it at 34 each.
Yeah, that was because of the defense. The defense took away those threes, took away the easier, cleaner looks. And they forced them to shoot over their size. And the one thing London have is a lot of size, both and even in the backcourt. Nelson and Jordan Taylor are big guards in British Basketball League terms. Kieran Sandy's a decent sized wing, and then obviously Conor Morgan is the size of most BBL centers. That's without talking about Olaseni and Sharma. And they made them, and they really kind of shut them down that way and took away their easy baskets, and that kind of set the tone for the game because again it's the same against Caledonia. Surrey needed to keep the hammer down. Justin didn't really impact this game. He came off the bench again. I prefer it when he's starting. Don't know how healthy he is. Didn't play much. But obviously Lloyd's trying to get Cam Gooden into kind of that starting role and run with him. Andrew Lawrence was pretty good off the bench. But basically, if you let Surrey shoot threes and Josh Steele is having a really solid year on the quiet, really shooting like 42% from three. If you let them get those shots off, they're really, really good in that gym. And London basically stepped up and stopped them doing that. It was
So
their defense that won. Yeah.
Steele had 7 as they went back to 8-point lead at halftime. Again, London pulled them back in the third quarter and actually got in front in the fourth quarter. And because I had a little extra time before we started this, I did go back and watch Quinn Cooper's 3 3-pointers in a row
Yeah.
to make it 73-67.
Yeah, at that point in the game, though, what I will say is that, it was kind of, Surrey were desperate to find someone who could score, and Cooper had come off in the first quarter and he had made his shots. And it was almost like London had tuned themselves to where the threats were and who they needed to guard. And Cooper was a bit of a surprise. So he kind of, they got a couple where they had their hands down because he'd missed a few shots early. And, players kind of get attuned to games. Us coaches, we give them scouting reports and this, that, and the other, but 80% of the time they don't listen. Until it happens to them. And then with Cooper, is a guy who can make 3 in a row very quickly before you realize what's happened. But even then, Surrey couldn't generate any real extra offense. They didn't have Jameson to get them second possessions, and they were relying on individual plays. And Wang made a nice play near the end as well.
Let's go through because I watched the last couple of minutes back. Let's go through that. So 2 minutes to go. Olaseni draws the defense, kicks to Taylor for 3. 76-77. Uh, Next play down,
Just on
yeah.
that one, Dan, if anybody who's ever listened to Jordan Taylor's commentary will know how much he emphasizes, getting the ball into the paint and kicking it out of the paint because they're the threes that you make.
Mm,
As they're the threes at higher percentage threes, and that was a perfect example of it. All of a sudden on the short roll, all of a sudden hits Taylor. 2 minutes before that, Taylor had shot another shot from the same spot, but he shot it off the dribble
mm,
and he missed it badly.
mm,
And it's a difference in percentages in those two shots. That's what makes Taylor great
mm,
in this league because he realizes that the shot he shot, he's aware of he's aware of where the odds are in his favor.
mm,
And the second shot was when all of a sudden he catches a ball and paint and throws it to him. As he said on one of the commentaries recently, they're the shots you shoot in practice. You have somebody rebound for you and they throw it out to you.
mm.
So they're the ones that they're the high percentage shots. And that was an exemplification of it in action.
Lawrence fell over, but still managed to get the ball to Ogundengbi, who hit from the elbow, 78-77. Surrey in the lead. 124 to go. Surrey got kind of lost in the pick and roll, and that left Nelson open at the top. He hit a three,
Well,
78
Nelson
80.
going left. I mean, we do tend to forget, London have the best four, arguably the best four guards in the league.
Mm,
Taylor, Nelson, Phillip, and Morgan. Who are you gonna put above? If you were to argue that, if you were to say that Nelson was the fourth of those guards, I'm not sure he is, but if you were to say that he's the fourth of those guards, who else would you put above him from any other team in the league at that position? It's a difficult shout, really, if you think about it, because
mm,
we've only seen Luke Nelson in the UK playing 17 minutes a game coming off the bench,
mm,
right? But you give Luke Nelson 30 minutes a game. Luke Nelson's a guy who made a shot to get GB a Eurobasket in the last
mm.
second of a game against Germany or France.
Germany.
Germany, he's a real player, and we tend to kind of not necessarily understand just how good he is because we don't see it because he's not putting up 25 points on 17 shots every game because he's not shooting that many shots.
Mm,
But when he's playing 30 minutes and there's only two of them, there's only him and Jordan Taylor of the two senior guards. Suddenly the responsibility transfers to him, and it's his moment. And if you let him go, one got caught on the screen, you let him go 2 dribbles to his left, it's a layup.
mm,
2 dribbles to his left is a pull-up three. That's his shot, and he
mm,
made it.
mm. Wang late shot clock attacks from the corner. A good finish, 80-80 with 1 minute to go.
Yeah, well, athletically.
Mm. Taylor round the screen. Josh wondering on commentary whether that was an illegal screen by Olusheni. I thought there might have been a little lean. I thought Josh had a point on that one, but Taylor got all the way to the basket in a tough finish, 80-82.
Yeah, I mean, he wanted the foul as well, so it went both ways.
Yeah, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, again, that's Taylor taking over these games, and he really is an admirable kind of winning player. You can see how he's ended up so high up in Europe where he's played. And then you come down and Surrey need a basket, and I
London
wasn't sure
used
whether
their fouls well, I thought, and then what they ended up with was a Wang three over Olaseni with still 5 seconds on the shot clock. It wasn't really a great shot.
Yeah, well, I think what Joshua Graham said on commentary was, what Wang needs to do there, he needs to back out.
Mm,
I know he's only got 5 seconds on the shot clock. If he's got all this in a mismatch, he's got, you've got to do the retreat dribble. You've got to retreat 2 steps back so you can get ahead of steam up going to the rim or attacking, or you can rock Olasheni onto his heels and then you can pull up and shoot it. He didn't really do that. He just kind of stood there and kind of
mm,
shot it. I thought it was a bit of a bailout shot, and he's not a high percentage 3-point shooter to the point. It's a shot whereby if that's the best shot you get, London are living with that
mm.
every day of the week.
Yeah,
If he
yeah.
makes it, okay, nice shot.
Morgan was fouled, but he missed the first of 2 free throws. So it's still a 3-point game, 80-83. And they got a corner three for Steele. It didn't go in, and that was basically that.
Yeah, but again, it was one of those corner threes whereby the ball never touched the paint,
Mm,
It was just a pass down the wing, turn and shoot it. It's a hard shot. Josh Steele makes a lot of shots, but the shots Josh Steele generally makes the ones where he's receiving the ball that's coming towards him, either at the top or in the corner, and he's got his feet set before he shoots. It's a bit different when you're having to catch it and then turn and shoot it yourself without the basket in your sights. Yeah, probably a great win for London again. Again, real demonstrable growth from their younger guys, and real veteran stick-to-itiveness from their older guys. If that makes any sense. Surrey are best described by their start line at the end. They shot, I think, more threes than twos.
I've managed not to
Um,
write it down, so I've left the thing open. So
I think they were
Surrey shot,
18. Sorry, go on.
they were 18 of 37 from two and 13 of 40 from three.
Yes, that's 39 points on threes and 36 points on twos. You know, they can't, if you're shooting 43s, they're not all good looks.
Mm.
London is not giving you 40 good looks, you know. So it's that thing again. Can they score enough twos to beat you? Instead, they end up bailing themselves out at times with hard 3-point shots, and eventually, a team with more size, not going to give up cheap offensive rebounds. Jameson's not there for second shots. A team with more size is going to challenge those shots, and to the point whereby the percentages aren't going to be in your favor. And so, if you're shooting more threes and twos, then you better make a few more threes.
Mm. Steele had 14 points and 5 rebounds. Lawrence 13 points and 4 assists, and Okasiemi 5 of 5 shooting for 11 points.
Yeah, mentioned to him because it'd be wrong not to. Luke Okasiemi, he's played very sparingly so far. He's, according to the guys, he's a high jumper, which is a heck of a preparation to be a basketball player, I suppose. The one thing that impresses about him, obviously, he has the frame and the jumping ability, but lots of kind of guy, and he's probably 6'9", 6'10". Lots of guys have that. His kind of ability to redistribute himself around the paint and to catch and finish and to be available for the catch and the finish. It speaks of very good coaching. That he's in the game and the team is immediately looking for him. He's not doing things he can't do. He's playing around the rim. He's rolling off the basket. He struggled a bit defensively when he played a few minutes up in Newcastle when I was there. And I think teams will go at him, and he's going to have that situation, whereas a young guy is going to get fouled. But wow, it's a tremendous accomplishment for him to come in and have 11 points in like 9 minutes against London, and to get them the way he got them. He wasn't giving them. He
13
had to
and a
make
half
plays.
minutes, actually.
13 and a half minutes, sorry. But he had to make plays as well. And obviously Jameson's not there, so that frees up some minutes for him. But if you're looking for raw material, then Surrey's done a fantastic job there, and they're clearly nurturing him and bringing him along the way that benefits everybody. So good job, so that's really encouraging for Surrey, and a real pat on the back for Lloyd and Dan Clark.
So Ola Shenny had 25 points and 8 rebounds. He was plus 23 in 25 and a half minutes. Morgan, 18 points, 8 rebounds, and Taylor, 11 points, 8 assists.
Well, Olasheni, I mean, he's not generally playing with the bench that much, so that's why his plus minus will be really high. He's playing with the starters at the beginning, but he's just really, really good. I know big men don't get MVP. He told us that already. But if he ends up being the guy who plays more games than anybody else, and Matt Morgan plays half he does, then I'm telling you, he just is just him and Taylor, they're kind of the heartbeat of that team. Everybody else flits around the outsides of it, in and out, and does their job. But it's Matt Morgan flying to the rim and pulling, making threes, or Conor Morgan doing what he does. But it's Taylor and Olasheni who are the absolute beating heartbeat of that team. And that's mentally as much as physically.
Let's
Olasheni's a big guy. He could have chucked that. He's played all these games. The consistency that he is displaying is, in the manner in which he's playing, the efficiency of it is incredible, really. It's we were all salivating over Costa Koufos last year, or Koufos 1,000 games in the NBA. Well, Gabe Olaseni, he's a similar age, and he's twice the player. Let's be honest. The reality of it, and he's not made it in the NBA because he hasn't got the pure size or athleticism to do that, and ultimately, that's what your body shape affects whether you get a job in the NBA or not. But as a European centre, I mean, I just hope Mark's find a way of talking him out of retirement for Eurobasket qualifiers.
Mm. Let's go through the league table then. London actually qualified for the playoffs yesterday, by the way, before the
Brilliant.
turn of the year.
Brilliant. Qualified. And I bet that's the first time anyone's ever qualified for the playoffs before Christmas.
It was
Before
one of
New Year.
those, yeah, it was one of those I couldn't be bothered to look up, but it's probably true.
You just think about it, that's bad enough.
Yeah, yeah. And I also got asked it on Twitter, but at that point we were going to the pub, so
Did you?
it was not worth
There
it
it
was
is.
not worth. Um, so they are 22-3. Caledonia are 13-8. Cheshire 12-8. Newcastle 11-9. Sheffield 11-10. Bristol 11-11, and Leicester 10-11. I think this is the first time we've had everybody in order of losses, which always makes me feel better. Surrey 7. Did I say Leicester 10-11? I think I did.
Yeah, you did.
Surrey 7-14, Manchester 7-16, and Plymouth 3-17. Because in my head, that table is right, and all the other
Yeah,
ones are wrong because they weren't
I
in
get.
order.
Yeah, I absolutely understand. That's the way we used to do it. Of course, it used to matter.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It doesn't really matter anymore. Um, yeah, so
So,
London are currently 9 wins ahead of everybody else at Christmas. We may have a parity issue.
possible. So my our production assistant asked me the other day about trophy groups, and wouldn't it be good if we had a combined record / RPI type thing, and then did it himself and texted it to me. So the group that contains Sheffield, Caledonia, Cheshire, Surrey, and Plymouth are a combined
You ever feel
40.
guilty?
Hey,
You ever feel guilty
why?
that you're kind of betrothing all these mini routledges?
He's literally, oh, but yeah, okay. I was about
Yeah,
to say
and kind of
using the
yeah,
stats. He's
yeah, yeah.
actually headlined it real time SMB content, so he's giving it for the cause. Uh,
Wait,
they are
you have a cult again? What was it?
a combined 46 and 57 for that group of five. The other
All right.
group, London, Newcastle, Bristol, Leicester, and Manchester, are a combined 61 and 50. So 10 percentage points difference between the.
Yeah, that's because London's 22-3. I mean,
Yeah,
that's if you take them and make them whichever group London's in is going to be harder. But then again, the London team that they're going to see isn't going to be a team that's going to take them 22-3.
mm,
So I mean, it's an interesting statistical exercise. Keep it up, guys. I'm
mm,
always interested.
mm.
But I do have to say, there is a life out there as well.
There is, but
But I
it
know, but
revolves around Sunday Night Breakdown. I think
we
more
are
than
we
anything.
are a cult. That's great.
Yeah,
And cult.
yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
So I'm on the double header next Sunday, so we'll have to be Monday again next week, unfortunately.
Okay. Cool.
Sort of Christmas hangover.
Fine. I mean, to be honest, as I say, I apologize for the lateness of this, everybody. It's unusual at this time of year. It's all been a
Mm,
bit,
mm.
uh, but we'll get back to normal soon. But yeah, great. You've reminded Charles it was 8 of 27. I do hope he doesn't listen to this.
I
He'll be coming at me big time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Happy Christmas, everybody. Happy New Year.
Indeed. Happy New Year, everybody. Dave and I will be back next week to do it all over again. But for now, goodbye.